Hey guys, welcome back to Pistons Talk Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great Sunday so far. This is a pre-recorded episode, and I'll tell you guys why, and you'll understand. So this past weekend on Saturday and Sunday, we've had an air show where I live. And if you've ever been to an air show, they're very loud. We have fighter jets flying over my house like crazy. And those jets are shaking my whole house. I can't hear anything. You guys probably couldn't hear me either. So that's why we're doing a pre-recorded episode on today's podcast. But there is a lot to get into. There's head coach speculation, there's free agency targets, NBA draft, and much more. So we're going to get into our first segment of this podcast. So the first segment of this podcast is the Pistons are now believed to be evaluating their coaching staff, including head coach Monty Williams, per James Edwards III. Now, we had James on last week, and we asked him a similar question to this. Is Monty Williams going to be the head coach for the Detroit Pistons? And he said he was 50-50. He said the reason why maybe there wasn't a press conference yet was they could be evaluating Monty. They could see if he's going to come back or not. And I think there's some truth to that. I really do. You hired Trajan Langdon, what, 3 weeks ago or so? I can't keep up with time right now. I think it was 3 weeks ago. Since then, he has fired Troy Weaver, and we still haven't gotten a press conference. And I think a part of that is because they may be looking to move on from Monty Williams. And I know it's a very touchy subject for some fans. I know some fans could care less if he comes back or not. Other fans want to give him more of a longer leash, give him another year, see what he has, see what he can do with this roster that basically you're going to be bringing in new guys because you have $60 million in cap. See what Monty Williams could do with maybe more veterans on the team, more leaders on the team. See if he can win more than 14 games going into next season. And I understand both sides of the argument. I understand fans that want to move on from him right away. I understand the other fans that want to be a little bit more patient. I think both of you guys have valid points. I really do. But I'm going to give you my opinion. I honestly think they're going to move on from him. I think the reason why the press conference hasn't happened yet is because they're basically re-interviewing everybody, seeing who they want to keep, seeing who they don't want to keep. And I think it would be smarter for Trajan Langdon and company to just start with a blank canvas, start fresh, bring in your guys, bring in who you trust, and bring in the head coach that you want to hire. I honestly think that Monty could get fired. I really do. And I don't know if you guys have seen the Motown Noah video, and I'll play it for you guys so you guys can listen to it. But he had kind of like a speculation of what could possibly happen and what he's hearing with the Monty Williams drama, if you want to call it that. I don't know if we want to call it drama, but this is the Monty Williams saga. So here,
What I heard. I put out that JJ Redick video. Okay, I don't hear much on the Pistons front these days, honestly, that you guys don't hear at the same time that I do. I don't learn that much these days. But I got a text. And the text read that internally, Monty Williams has been out since March. They decided that. They're like, whatever the timeline ends up being here, whoever we hire, if Troy stays, whatever, Monty Williams is not going to be the coach. Apparently, internally, there are people who believe that he was trying to get fired this year. I don't know if I believe that. I don't, honestly, that seems too like Reddit pilled. I don't think that's real. But okay, so Monty Williams is out. So who would the Pistons be looking at for their head coach? There are 3 names that I was told. Chris Quinn, who by all accounts, within the next 365 days will probably have a head coaching job in the NBA. Definitely one of those sneaky up next guys to get a head coaching job in the league. Okay, cool. Who's next? James Borrego. Interesting because he just wasn't good with the last young team that he coached. Okay, who is the third name? It's JJ Redick. Apparently, that's who they would want to look at. Okay, so what did we hear the day after I put out that video? Yeah, the Detroit Pistons are currently evaluating Monty Williams' job. How do you think that one's going to end? Do you think they're going to get to the end of that evaluation period and think, nah, man, we fucking, let's let bygones be bygones and let's just kickstart this thing, but let's roll it back with the same coach? I doubt that shit very much, to be honest with you. I'm pressing X as fast as I can. I don't believe it, right?
So shout out to Motown Noah. Shout out to Nick Henkel, his podcast, if you guys want to go listen to it, the Coping Hour. And I don't know if I believe the reporting, but like I said, it could be true. It couldn't. But if the Pistons really want to move on from Monty, and those were the three names, like Chris Quinn, I think a lot of you guys were really high on last year during the interview process as a possible coach to come to Detroit. James Borrego has the Trajan Langdon connection. So that's a name that you could look out for. And then JJ Redick, like we thought he was going to LA, but now it sounds like Dan Hurley's going to be coaching the Lakers. It sounds like the Lakers are going to give him a bag. I mean, if this reporting is true that Nick did hear from the text message that he got from an unknown source, hey man, that would be pretty crazy. But I did want to bring that to your guys' attention because I do think it is worth mentioning. So one of the next topics I did want to get into with you guys was free agency. And the next two topics are going to be very free agency heavy. So it's reported that the Detroit Pistons and the Oklahoma City Thunder are potential suitors who might try to pry Hartenstein away from the Knicks. They also go on to say Hartenstein could fetch a contract upwards of $100 million in free agency per Jake Fisher. Okay, let's talk about this. So the Pistons and Thunder are interested in one of the better centers in this upcoming free agency in Isaiah Hartenstein. Now, I know some people like Nick Claxton, which we'll talk about in the next segment, but I think Hartenstein is a very good name in this upcoming unrestricted free agency class that we can discuss and talk about. I think the $100 million, 25 a year, Pistons haven't had a center like that since Andre Drummond contract-wise. If you guys remember, Andre signed like 5 for 125, $100 million contract, and a lot of people hated the contract at the time. Hartenstein could fetch up to $100 million, 25 a year over a 4-year period with the Detroit Pistons. Would it be a good fit? Personally, I think if you're paying a center $100 million, he better be an all-star that year. That's all I'm going to say. He better put up all-star type numbers. Because if the Pistons were to go out, and I don't want to say overpay, go out and pay at Hartenstein, and he doesn't put up the numbers that Pistons fans want or Pistons fans expect, like it could be a disaster. It could be very similar to the Charlie V, Ben Gordon days where you're overpaying free agents to come here and they don't produce the way that you want. I honestly think if I'm the Pistons, I'm interested in Hartenstein. I'm not interested at $100 million. And I think the Knicks may go out and overpay him for $70 to $80 million. I think that's a real possibility because he was a very big piece to the New York Knicks team this year, their playoff run. But if I'm the Pistons, $100 million for Isaiah Hartenstein, I don't know, man. That would be very tough to sell to the fan base when you have a young center in Jalen Duren that a lot of fans believe that is going to be the starting center and this franchise center for years to come. If you pay Hartenstein, there's a good chance he's starting over Duren. And I don't think fans want that. I think fans want Duren to start, but just wanted to bring it to your attention. Pistons and Thunder are teams that are reportedly interested in going after him this upcoming free agency, and it could cost up to over $100 million, maybe more. Who knows? But did want to talk about that for a couple of minutes because, we have free agency, I think, a month or so from now. So that's going to be fun and interesting if you are a Pistons fan because, hey, Pistons have $64 million in potential cap space that they can spend. So we're sticking with free agency, like I said earlier about the Hartenstein report. So we got a report earlier this week from James Edwards III. Gary Harris, Malik Monk, and Nick Claxton are free agent targets per James. Now, give a shout out to James. Had him on the podcast last week. If you want to listen to that podcast on the audio side, it should be up on all platforms. If you're watching live on YouTube and you haven't watched it yet, maybe you've been out enjoying the summer, just enjoying life. It's on our updated podcast playlist if you want to listen to that. But getting back to this report from James, Malik Monk, Nick Claxton, and Gary Harris. Let's start with Gary Harris, first of all. I don't think the Pistons go after Gary Harris. Yes, there's a Michigan State connection there, but I don't see it. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I don't really see the appeal for Gary Harris, a shooting guard that hasn't really stayed healthy throughout his career and a shooting guard that isn't consistent. Like, I don't know. I don't think they would be a good fit. Now, with Malik Monk, I've kind of been on that train. I think a Malik Monk to the Pistons might happen. And again, much like we were talking about Hartenstein, you may have to overpay to get a Malik Monk. And I think Malik Monk would be higher on my wish list for the Pistons because I think they need more three-point shooting. And Malik Monk could definitely bring that to the Pistons. Now, he played in a limited role with the Sacramento Kings. And I know some people are probably going to look up a stat and say, I don't want to overpay for a guy like that. If the Pistons signed Malik Monk to come to Detroit, he instantly would have more opportunities. He would instantly be one of their better players on the court next to Cade Cunningham if you want to start him, or he could play within that six-man role, much like Alec Burks did last year. But I think Malik Monk at this stage of his career is younger and better than Alec Burks currently is. I think there's a lot of appeal there if you're the Pistons and your Pistons fans listening with a Malik Monk in free agency. I think he's going to be very targeted by a lot of teams that have cap space that are looking just for straight up scoring and three-point shooting. And that's why I like him. I think it'd be a good fit. Let's get to Claxton, though, because I think Claxton is the kind of in the same conversation as a Hartenstein. What I will say is Nick Claxton is a rim protector. And why does that matter? Well, the Pistons were one of the worst defensive teams last year, and I think all of you guys know that. 14 wins last year out of 82. That was really bad. And that was really hard to watch night in and night out of just getting obliterated by teams just going into the paint at will. We didn't really have a rim protector, quote unquote. I think if you were to go after Claxton, it would be similar to Hartenstein in terms of contract, in terms of money, probably over $100 million. And then you have the conversation, should the Pistons go after a Claxton? Should they, pay him? I don't know. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it because I think Duren can take another step in development. Now, if he can get back to what he was doing his rookie season of blocking shots and protecting the rim, I think I would much rather bank on Duren's development. Plus, he's still on a rookie deal, so you don't really have to spend money in free agency on a center. But Claxton on paper makes sense because he's a rim protector and a lob threat. But I honestly think if I'm the Pistons, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm Pistons fans watching this, I should say. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Claxton and Hartenstein as targets for the Pistons to go after this summer, just given the lack of rim protection that we had and the lack of defense that we showed opposing offenses, especially in the painted area. Duren and Stewart just didn't do a really good job of blocking shots and, letting guards and forwards just get to the rim at will. I think Claxton makes sense on paper, but again, do you really want to bring him in and have him start over Duren and, pay him over $100 million? Like, that's the question you have to ask yourself if you are a Detroit Pistons fan. Seeing these reports with all of these quote unquote like targeted, reported free agents that the Pistons could target with their 60+ million in cap. I honestly think if you want to be cheaper, there are some, backup centers that you could sign it if you want to address the backup center need, because I don't think there's a world where they bring James Wiseman back. I think James Wiseman is just going to go into free agency and sign with a new team that maybe wants to see if there's something there with him. I don't think the Pistons bring James Wiseman back because Troy Weaver's gone now. The only reason why James Wiseman was here was because of Troy Weaver. He's no longer part of the organization. So I think they'll definitely go after a center. I don't know if it's going to be Hartenstein, Claxton, or maybe a lower tier center. But did want to talk about that for a couple of minutes. Just want to get a little drink of water because talking for 15 minutes straight with no water is pretty crazy. So we're going to focus on the NBA draft next. And I think a lot of you guys are very engaged with the NBA draft, and that's to be expected. We're about, I think, less than 3 weeks. We will have the NBA draft. Still undecided whether or not I'm going to be doing a live stream for it. I don't know. I might not. I might just actually watch it this year and enjoy it. But getting back to the next segment, we have 2 different mocks that I did want to react to. And we had a Yahoo Sports mock this week, earlier in the week. And then we had a Bleacher Report mock draft this week. So I'm going to put it on the screen. And if you're listening on the audio side, I will read each pick because you're not watching on YouTube, obviously. So with the Yahoo Sports mock draft from Kristen Peak of Yahoo Sports, it was Zachary Richeche, Alex Sarr, Stephon Castle, Reed Shepard, TJ Solong with the Pistons pick at 5, Modest Bazelis at 6, Donovan Clingan at 7, Ron Holland at 8, Dalton Connect at 9, and Rob Dillingham at 10. So with Kristen Peak's Yahoo Sports mock draft, again, she had the Pistons selecting a French prospect, TJ Solong, out of Chalette. Now, if we go over to the Bleacher Report's mock draft, and this was from Jonathan Wasserman of Bleacher Report. He's their NBA draft expert analyst. He had Zachary Richeche and Alex Sarr going 1 and 2. Reed Shepard at 3 for the Rockets. Modest Bazelis at 4, which we're going to talk about. Donovan Clingan at 5 for the Pistons with the Pistons pick. Stephon Castle at 6. Dalton Connect at 7. Devin Carter at 8. Ron Holland at 9. And Rob Dillingham at 10. Okay, so let's talk about TJ Solong first. Because I think TJ Solong at 5 is a big swing. And if you hit it, I mean, you look like the smartest guy in the room. Like, if this guy pans out to where a lot of these draft analysts think he's going to pan out, he could just be a two-way athletic wing that the Pistons have been looking for in the draft over the past couple of years. And it's a big gamble. And I know a lot of Pistons fans, when they see French prospects, they immediately get PTSD with Sekou Doumbouya and Killian Hayes. I kind of find it hard to believe that the Pistons would draft Solong at 5. But hey, man, I could be wrong. Trajan Langdon may make me a liar. You never really know, right? And for the Bleacher Report mock draft this week, Donovan Clingan at 5. Now, one of the next segments we're going to talk about is Clingan as a possible trade-up target. If the Pistons honestly believe that Clingan at 5 is the best available prospect for them, I can understand it, because we just talked for a good 5 to 6 minutes about lack of rim protection. And what does Donovan Clingan do? What did he do in college? Protect the rim. 7'2", 280 pounds. He's a rim protector. He's a lob threat. He can get in the post and score. I think if you're the Pistons and you want to get better at that center position and get a center on a rookie contract, Clingan makes a lot of sense if you're the Pistons, if you want to upgrade that center position. I don't know if they do. In this Bleacher Report mock also had Modest Bazelis as a top 4 pick. Now, I don't know if Bazelis is just going to climb up the ranks and be a top 4 pick, but if he does, good for him. Honestly, good for him. The Spurs drafting him, I would actually be scared, because the Spurs know how to develop talent. I think that would be a good fit for the Spurs. You'd have Wemby and Bazelis, which would just be absolutely filthy if you're a Spurs fan. But if you're a Pistons fan, I know a lot of you guys really, really liked Modest Bazelis as a target with the 5th overall pick. But I did want to react to both of those mocks, because I think what mock drafts tell us is they give us a better understanding of what these draft analysis are hearing from GMs, front office executives, agents. They kind of give you a better understanding of what could possibly happen within the next couple of weeks of this draft, which I'm very excited for to see what happens. Is that think there's going to be a trade. I just don't know when. I think that a trade is coming pretty soon, though. But before we do jump into the next segment of this podcast, you guys, we have to hear from today's sponsor of the podcast, the Game Time Ticket app.
You guys, I have to tell you about today's sponsor on the podcast, the Game Time Ticket app. How exciting would it be to attend an NBA Finals game? Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seats, and their lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Now, one of my favorite features within the Game Time app is they have a 360-degree angle from where you're going to be sitting. So let's check out this Detroit Tigers game that's happening in about an hour or so. So you got an upper box infield. And as you guys can see on the screen, Game Time is showing you how close you're going to be getting to the action. One of my favorite features within the app. Now, if you go over and download the Game Time app and you use the promo code CNLS for $20 off your first purchase, terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time Ticket app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, you guys, we are back. We appreciate Game Time for sponsoring today's podcast. We also appreciate CLNS Media for sponsoring Pistons Talk podcast. But let's get back into the NBA draft, what you guys are here for. So there were reports this week that teams are willing to trade up for Donovan Clingan. Now, I don't have the teams in front of me. I'm pretty sure the Bulls. Oh, excuse me. I just burped into the mic. I am so sorry. I was just drinking some water. I believe the Bulls and the Blazers, because the Blazers have 2 picks in this draft, were teams looking to try to trade up for a Donovan Clingan. And I think that would be a good fit. For the Bulls, I can understand it. Obviously, you have an aging Vucevic. You want to get more younger at that center position and get a guy that could possibly take over when Vucevic is gone and retired. The Blazers, I don't know, man. Blazers are the biggest mystery to me. Maybe you guys can help me figure it out because I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not going to pretend like I am. Like, I don't understand what the Blazers are doing because they have guys like DeAndre Ayton and Jeremy Grant, but they have young guys like Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons, and then they have 2 more lottery picks. It's like, what are we doing? Like, are you going to rebuild, or are you just going to, trade all of your young assets and just build a veteran team? Like, I don't get what they're talking about. I know this is completely off topic. We completely stopped talking about Donovan Clingan, but I don't know what the Blazers are doing. But those teams want to trade up for Clingan. There are teams in the later lottery that want to trade up for Clingan. I think I just remembered the Thunder were one of the teams also reported that wanted to trade up for him. Now, if you're the Pistons sitting at 5 and you got teams like the Bulls, the Blazers, and the Thunder calling you to trade up, maybe you can get a player in return and maybe a draft pick in the 2024 NBA draft, or maybe you can get a draft pick in the 2025 NBA draft, which is a lot better than 2024. You never know, right? You never know, because teams are going to be desperate. Teams that need more center depth, need more center help. Maybe you can get something in return for those teams to trade up with you, because you are sitting at 5. You never really know what's going to happen in this draft. I think it's a good possibility that Donovan Clingan does go in the top 6, possibly top 7 in this upcoming draft. And if they feel that, maybe he's a top 5 pick, Pistons could be sitting right there and they could be willing to trade down. Maybe they trade out of the lottery. Maybe they trade in, the mid to first round and they can get their guy that they want. Or maybe they can get some players in return and maybe a draft pick in the future. You never really know how these NBA drafts do pan out, but I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about, possibly a Donovan Clingan trade in the works with the Pistons if they do not keep the pick. But did want to talk about that for a couple of minutes. And I promise I will not burp in the mic anymore. I still can't believe I did that. I'm so sorry, you guys. It's been a long week. It has been a long week. All right, you guys, we're going to stick with the NBA draft, and this comes from Draft Express. Jonathan Givony, to be exact. TJ Salong has a scheduled workout with your Detroit Pistons. You guys shouldn't be freaking out. All these prospects work out with a lot of teams. Doesn't mean the Pistons are going to be selecting TJ Salong from Chalette, France. Just means they want to have him in for a private workout, see what's there, see if the potential is worth the risk. I think he'd be a very risky prospect if I'm Detroit to draft him as high as 5. But, I mean, if he hits, man, that's a hell of a home run. Really is. You'd be swinging for the fences with a guy like that. But did want to talk about it for a minute or so. I don't really think it's something that we need to overreact to. We're going to get a bunch of workouts, bunch of lists of prospects that are going to be working out with various teams, just not the Detroit Pistons. So there's a lot of prospects right now that are having private scheduled workouts with every NBA team. I believe the Thunder and the Blazers were the other 2 teams that are looking to bring him in. Thunder, or I think later lottery, I want to say like 12 they're at. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have it pulled up in front of me. And the Blazers have 2 lottery picks in this draft as well. So you never know. But something I did want to bring to your guys' attention. So we do have some Detroit Pistons front office news, you guys. Michael Blackstone is set to be the executive vice president of basketball operations. If you guys didn't see it, he actually tweeted it himself. He updated his Twitter bio, and I did some research because I wanted to know what his resume, his front office experience is. And this is all I could find for you guys. So he was an executive director of basketball operations of the Cleveland Cavaliers for a year from 2012 to 2013. He was an assistant general manager of the Atlanta Hawks from 2015 to 2017. And most recently, he was the vice president of basketball administrations of the New Orleans Pelicans from 2020 to 2024. Talked with James Edwards last week about it. He said he did a lot of contract negotiations with the Pelicans. So he's kind of had that front office experience. Seems like a really cool dude. Hopefully, he could get this ship in the right direction. In terms of like what his role would be, I don't know if it's going to be a general manager role. I don't know if that's what they're calling it, but he's going to be the number 2 under Trajan Langdon. He's going to be his right-hand man within this Pistons front office. We also have more front office news. We have J.R. Holden is also joining the Detroit Pistons organization. Now, J.R. Holden's resume is a little bit more lengthy, and I'll put it on the screen for you guys to see. Now, this is his front office experience. He was a college and international scout for the Detroit Pistons from 2014 to 15. Then he got promoted to director of international scouting for the Detroit Pistons from 2016 to 2018. And he was also a scout with the Philadelphia 76ers for 1 season. He was a director of player personnel with the Brooklyn Nets from 2019 to 2022. And he's the general manager of the Long Island Nets, which is their G League affiliate from 2022 to 2023. And he's been with the Brooklyn Nets ever since then. Now, I know some people are going to look at the Pistons stuff and look at the years and saying, like, wasn't this guy in Stan Van Gundy's front office? Yes, he was. But just because he was a part of Van Gundy's front office doesn't mean he was the guy that passed on Devin Booker for Stanley Johnson. That was Jeff Bauer and Van Gundy. That wasn't J.R. Holden. J.R. Holden could have wanted another prospect. We'll never know. We really don't. But from reading comments from Nets fans, reading articles, this seems like a really big get for the Pistons. Now, I don't know if Holden's going to be the GM. I don't know if he's going to have more of a scouting background, if he's going to have more of a GM background, assistant GM. I don't know. But these were the 2 moves that we actually got told. I believe this is from Vinny Goodwill and Jake Fisher. They were the first to report this with J.R. Holden. So we have 2 executives under Trajan Langdon, Michael Blackstone, and J.R. Holden. funny enough, J.R. Holden actually played with Trajan Langdon over in Russia, and they won some championships together. So, little fun fact there. Now, one of the next segments I wanted to get into, you guys, and probably the last segment of this podcast, was Lauri Markkanen. Now, there was a sports book out this week, and the Pistons were favored to land Lauri Markkanen if the Jazz wanted to trade him. Now, this is the full sports book odds if Lauri Markkanen were to be on the move. So the San Antonio Spurs would be the favorite at a plus 600. Oklahoma City would be at a plus 850. The Detroit Pistons would be at a plus 900. The Magic at a plus 700. Golden State at plus 15. And the Houston Rockets at plus 1600. Now, I don't think this is something that maybe you guys are rolling your eyes out. I think this is something. And I think he's a player that a lot of us have talked about. We've talked about Lauri Markkanen, the idea of Lauri Markkanen in Detroit. And I don't really know what the Jazz plans are. I've read some articles that they want to go big game hunting. They're looking for more vets. They're looking for possibly more of win now players, if you will. Not saying that the Pistons don't have those players, but maybe the Pistons can get in a 3-team trade and they land Lauri Markkanen. Maybe they do a 3-team trade with Utah, the Pistons, and another possible team that has veterans, and Lauri Markkanen could end in Detroit. You never really know. But I do think it's something to talk about. I've been on the Lauri train, it seems like, for 2 years. I thought he would just be such a good fit because the Pistons really were hyper-focused on this too big lineup with Stewart and Duren. I thought Lauri Markkanen could easily become your second-best player next to Cade Cunningham, and he could be a guy that could stretch the floor, run the dribble handoff offense, and just easily get you 20 points a night. If you were to trade for him, it kind of seems like a pipe dream at this point. It really does. I don't really think that the Jazz are going to move on from Lauri, and if they do, Danny Ainge is a very, very shrewd GM. He would probably ask for knowing Danny Ainge, he'd probably ask for Cade Cunningham. And I'm not even joking. Like, Danny Ainge is just such a savage as a GM. I'd find it very hard to believe that he'd move on from Lauri. But if he would, it sounds like the Pistons would be one of the teams favored to try to go out and trade for him and land him. But let me know what you guys think of that, because I think it is something worth mentioning. One last piece of news, and then we can wrap up this podcast. So it was reported earlier this week from James Edwards as well that Cade Cunningham is expected to sign a contract extension with the Detroit Pistons. Now, I know we talked about this, I believe, like 2 months ago or so, that it could be a possibility. He could be signing that rookie max that is around $225 million. If it's Cade gets all NBA honors and MVPs and stuff like that, it goes up to $270 million with the new CBA. I expect it to happen. I expect Cade to sign that supermax because there's only 1 year left on his deal. And why not, lock down your franchise player, lock down one of your best players on the team. And like I said, I think he's worth it. Some fans don't. I think some fans just, they don't believe in Cade Cunningham. They think the Pistons should trade him right now, which I don't understand people's viewpoint of that. I don't get what you would gain out of trading Cade Cunningham, because essentially you would just be telling your fans, oh, let's rebuild even more. But I expect Cade to get that supermax, that rookie supermax, I should say. But did want to end the podcast on that note. I do apologize, no Q&A, no live stream, but like I said, these Jets are just so loud, I would not be able to even do the podcast, and you guys would not be able to hear me. But I appreciate you guys watching for the past 35, 36 minutes, listening to the podcast, listening to me ramble and host the podcast solo. Appreciate all you guys watching live right now. If you're listening on the audio side, I appreciate each and every one of you listening. We will be back next week, and if there is a presser this week, we will do an emergency podcast. I've been talking with Corey Woods. He said that he would come on after a Trajan Langdon presser. So if we have a press conference, we'll be joined by Corey Woods. But if not, we'll see you guys next Sunday. And I'll occasionally upload some videos throughout the week just to kind of keep you guys engaged, see what's going on, free agent targets, NBA draft, all that stuff. But like always, I hope you guys are staying safe. Take care, and I'll catch you guys on the next podcast. Have a great weekend, you guys. Peace.